Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Silverman, co-founder of CommerceNext, a community and conference for marketers at retail and direct-to-consumer brands. On behalf of my co-founders, Veronica Sonsev and Alan Dick, I'd like to welcome you to this week's CommerceNext webinar. This is our 13th that we're doing since the end of March during the pandemic. And the topic for today is the evolving gifting economy and what it means for retailers and brands. I'm especially excited about the topic because it seems that attention to gifting, especially digital gifting, is generally underrepresented given the amount of business that it represents. And even though it's mid-June and we're all in a summer state of mind, it's certainly not too early to think about the holiday season. Just as a reminder, we'll be taking your questions, so feel free to load them up during the presentations. But thank you all for tuning in and making time to join us live or listen to our replay. And we, of course, hope you're all continuing to stay healthy and safe. I want to start with a few important thank yous. First, to our speakers. We have a great group of folks that are going to be sharing their insights. Helena Hambrecht, who is co-founder and co-CEO of Haus, Jing, who's founder and CEO of Fly by Jing, Dana Springfield, who's VP at Dover Saddlery, and John Grech, who's head of retail partnerships at Loop Commerce. So thank you all to the speakers. We know how busy you are, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights with our community. So wanted to move on to the agenda. I have a couple of things I want to mention about what's coming up and some housekeeping info. And then we have an overview on gifting. As we usually do, we're going to have a couple polls for the audience to hear what's going on related to this topic in your businesses. And then we'll have a robust discussion with our panelists. And that's when we can get into some Q&A with all of you listening in as well. So in terms of what's coming up, next week's webinar is Wednesday, June 24th, 2 p.m., How to Prepare for a Digitally Driven Holiday. So we hope you join us for that. And we've been working pretty hard on our virtual summit, which is on the afternoons of July 28th and 29th. The theme is A Path to Recovery. We're excited about a number of the new speakers that we've announced, like Gail Tifford from Weight Watchers, Nate Checketts at Roan, Darren Hall at Vera Bradley, and Emily Boschwitz at Hims Hers. One of the things I wanted to announce on this call is CommerceNext has created a Black Speakers database, and I want to thank my fellow co-founder Veronica for taking the lead on this. We believe that conference organizers have a role to play in racial equality, and our goal is to create more visibility for Black leaders in retail and e-commerce and help bring more of them onto the stage or the virtual stage to be speakers and presenters at some of the conferences that we produce and others produce. And we want the support and involvement of our community to help us identify these folks who could potentially be speaking. And the idea is we have a form for you to nominate somebody, and please feel free to share this and nominate any Black folks that are in the industry and you think might be interested in participating. All of this will be opt-in and with permission. So we would be reaching out to them to see if they want to be interested in getting involved as a speaker. And we also be sharing this database with all the other conferences in our industry that we're familiar with. So we hope this will help a little bit. A couple housekeeping notes. First of all, don't worry if you've missed anything. We're recording the webinar and we'll make it available tomorrow. And want to just take you a minute to show you where a couple things are on your screen. So you'll see that we have an audience control panel. You want to kind of focus on the upper right. That's where you can access things like asking questions or seeing the results of polls or seeing the handouts. So the first area is around the questions. You'll see when you click on that Q&A and then you go down the bottom, you can ask a question. And then also, once you see that people have been asking questions, please feel free to upvote any of those that are of interest to you, and we'll prioritize getting to those. And we have handouts. So this deck is in the handouts area. So if you want to download that, either to follow along or to be able to look at later or pass along to colleagues, that's how you can access that. If you're listening to the replay, if you go down to the bottom, you can see the different files that include both the handouts and the results of the live polls that we'll be doing. So wanted to jump in on this topic of gifting, and big thank you to BizRate Insights. They have been our partner to provide consumer data related to this. So we did a poll at the end of April, bleeding into the beginning of May, and we asked a number of questions, but the one that's most relevant to this discussion, this webinar, is: has the crisis led you to sending more gifts or random acts of kindness? And I think we're all, pleasantly surprised to see that almost half, 48% of the people, the more than 1,000 people that answered that, said yes, they are sending more gifts, the donations to organizations, to friends and family they can't be with, or people that they know that need help. And we did a couple cuts of this data looking at gender, and we saw here that men are more likely to extend their generosity to organizations, and that's the second group of bars there. And then women seem to be more likely to be giving gifts to people that they know. And then when we broke it down by age ranges, we saw that younger people are more likely to be donating to friends and family that they can't be with, whereas folks in the 65 and older age range are more likely to be giving to organizations. So just a little bit of consumer data to help understand what the shopper is thinking these days when it comes to gifting. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to John Grech. He's going to talk and go into more detail on what's going on with gifting and some of the things that they're seeing.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate the time to get together with everyone and just share a point of view around what we're seeing out there in the land of gifting and how it's going to back into some potentially meaningful insights for retailers and brands, especially as they prepare going into holiday 2020. That may look a little bit different than it had in prior years. Quick backdrop on me. So 25 years playing in this digital commerce space, working primarily in the startup world. Early companies like Omniture, like Hook Logic, Power Reviews, tools that many of you may have used at one point or use today to satisfy customer needs on the site. Loop has been a 5-year journey for me so far, as of next month. 2 years ago, we were acquired by Synchrony, which has given us an amazing opportunity to grow this business within a large enterprise with all of the benefits that come along with that. And so today we're going to talk about this evolving gifting economy that we wake up every day and obsess about solving for consumers, and by extension, the retailers that are serving those consumers. And so I think a good place to start is acknowledging that the way that we actually celebrate occasions, especially as of late, has fundamentally changed. And we're seeing things like drive-through graduations, anyone who has kids, the parades of cars going around on birthdays, or even these sort of Zoom opportunities like we may have done throughout the holidays, where we had a chance to celebrate with family through this extended digital channel that we are all now using even today, for example, on this call. The irony of it is that in times like this, where we are distanced by physically distancing, people, to Scott's point earlier, are turning to gifting to create that connection and deepen the relationships with the people that matter most to them. And so we are seeing an acceleration of the use of gifting as a way of expressing somebody's feelings towards somebody else, or the way that they're trying to celebrate an opportunity or an occasion with a friend, colleague, or loved one. And so we all live in this digital economy, and shopping could never be easier. Access to millions and millions of products to be delivered on your doorstep the next day. But what we've realized and what we've built a business around is that actually that's not true necessarily for every aspect of shopping. And as we unpack the psychology behind gifting and how that's different from self-shopping, we realize that gifting as a purchasing paradigm has been left behind in what we would all call the digital revolution or digital experience revolution. And so we call this the gift experience gap, and it impedes commerce in a bunch of different ways, mostly because the way that you think about your classic path to purchase, the one that everyone on this call is obsessing about optimizing and getting better and better at every single day, is usually executed along a self-shopping path versus a path where people are shopping for others. So things that get in the way are not things that you may be thinking about every day, like, does this person actually like this? You know, I'm pretty good at picking out stuff I like for myself. I'm not that good at picking out for other people. Things like size and color, or any variant. Do they want blue headphones, black headphones? What technology do they care most about in the TV I'm buying? These are things that are very personal, and they will stand in the way of making that decision. The logistical side is also challenging. How do I land this in the driveway of the person that I'm buying for the day that is the event that I want to celebrate? Can't do it, right? And what does it look like when I want to return that? That's just a nightmare. And so this path actually has significant implications, and there's a lot at stake. There's businesses that are stood up to go chase a $100 billion industry. There's conferences that support social commerce, for example, which is 5 or 6 billion in transactions. And gifting is actually very big. There's a lot at stake. The retailers that do it well and support this new need for people to express themselves are likely to have an opportunity to win in a way that is not being focused on by most in the industry. And so holiday spending, we're talking $1 trillion, right? There's $160 billion dumped on gift cards on an annual basis. Even business gifting alone, think about how that's pivoting around this new notion of virtual everything to the tune of $125 billion. Just when you consider that there's 900,000 birthdays every day that result in 2 to 3 million transactions that are entirely blind to most of the way that we think about marketing, this is actually happening all the time, and it's surrounding you every single day. And so it's a lost opportunity for retailers and brands when they're not thinking about how to get out in front of it. There's logistical cost to supporting the new normal of living in real time and learning about a birthday on Facebook and having to react to that. And most retailers are somehow subsidizing that mistake, right, by having to put money behind getting a product into somebody's driveway at a reasonable cost to the consumer. And quite frankly, the last line in arbitrary shipping deadlines are impeding sales. Imagine if you pulled up to the mall 3 days before Christmas and they said, sorry, we're closed, you can't shop anymore. And that's a real thing that happens in retail every holiday, for every major holiday, and certainly for every life event that people are buying for. Many, many things in our life have changed, right? I can't tell you the last time I got an actual letter from somebody in the mail, other than somebody who wanted to take my money because I owed a bill, right? Social validation comes in the form of likes instead of, attaboys and cheering at the baseball game that erupted at recess. People shop online versus in malls. They pay their babysitter with Venmo and not with cash anymore. And we're sitting here in this experience where otherwise we might have been in a conference room instead of in a Zoom room. And gifting has evolved from a package that I gave you to now there's a gift card option. And the biggest innovation in the last 10 years has been, I can email you that gift card, right? And that's what we mean when we say that the gift experience gap is preventing people from really being able to embrace digital as a channel for communicating these types of things. And so retailers and brands are losing out on that opportunity. There's a much broader commerce opportunity that lives even outside of retail because the inspiration moments for people to want to gift are actually found not at the shelf in the store, but through some social channel or social interaction that created that inspiration in the first place. Mother's Day is a great example. We'll just point back to that in 2020. As you can imagine, we process lots and lots of gifts across a large network of retailers. Loop offers a platform that allows for gifting to take place, and we're not here to describe how that works, but because of it, we have a lot of data, and we can take that and compare it to other commerce data and start to look at some trends. And so just as an example, e-commerce was up significantly in 2020. Everybody knows that, everyone's feeling that and enjoying the fruits of that. We saw an increase significantly year over year, and especially in those last minute moments when people realized, holy cow, it's in 2 days, it's tomorrow. I need to be able to honor mom, honor my sister-in-law, whatever it happens to be, around that holiday. And so social distancing in our mind is actually creating an increase in the need for being able to honor those holidays and those occasions in a much more robust way through digital experiences. Just as a comparison, again, going back to kind of some baseline data, in the example I'm showing here, the site traffic for this particular retailer was up 45%, call it 50 to be generous, right? Endemic gifting sales, meaning that when I buy and I actually get it to my house and give it to somebody, was up 150%, I guess not to be unexpected. And orders were up significantly. When we looked at how that mirrored the way that our platform would deliver, we saw a higher usage. Why? Because people were late to do it, and because they were realizing they needed better ways of actually delivering it through digital experiences. And so we saw sales on that same site increase 278%, and orders almost 50%. And we saw a slight uptick in the amount of money people were spending year over year for that same product type to the tune of about 10%. And so it's become more and more important for people to be able to communicate it. The holiday, I'm not going to point out everything in here, but we did see a significant shift towards what we call same-day delivery because we deliver through a digital channel. It enables you to do that on Christmas morning. And we saw a larger percentage or an over-indexing in last-minute purchases. Again, not to be confused with people that are planning and people that are well ahead of that curve. It turns out that more and more people are reacting very much in real time, even around national holidays and not just evergreen life events. We saw a wide range of price points that people were willing to buy and gift at. $2.50 at the low end up to $1,500 plus on the high end. Not inconsistent with what you would see from NRF data and otherwise. Clothing and apparel continue to be a leading category. I think that's actually the second most requested gift around holiday, just under gift cards. And we did see a nice spread across other categories that are a lot harder to gift as well, in home and garden, toys and hobbies, for example, and even baby gifts. This past Valentine's Day, we learned a bunch, right? I think the highlights would include things like, turns out 47% more women gift than men, meaning the transactions are mapped back to women over men. However, men spend more on a per gift basis. this isn't something that we haven't seen or we didn't see for the first time this year. That's been a consistent trend that we've seen across the last, at least 5 years since I've been here. And what that means is that your male audience is actually pretty important to a assortment that generally would be targeted at a female shopper, right? And men will also buy more frequently last minute. Men will spend more money on a per gift basis. And again, that's not only around holidays, but that's evergreen as well. 73% get it last minute, even on Valentine's Day. I think everyone in the world, at least in America, knows when Valentine's Day is, but yet we're still seeing people buy in that last minute situation versus the 27% that scheduled it in advance. I don't think we actually show this in this case, but it turns out that women, despite being generally better planners around things like this, are actually more last minute than men when it comes to Valentine's Day gifts, which is really interesting. So I think that the way to think about this is that your traditional shopper is actually not the shopper you're targeting around these gifting moments. It's the people who buy for your typical customer that you're going to want to find ways to target and ways to get in front of. So we look at kind of this revolution, if you will, and look at ways to create that path to purchase, to move your shoppers from indecision to decision, and do it in the paradigm of that gift shopper. It's a really hard thing to do with all of the muscle that's in the organization already around chasing that perfect profile customer and bringing them in and trying to nurture and create loyalty out of them to increase the transactions that they have with the business. When it comes to gifting, though, there's a world where you're going to want to think about that a little bit different. And so the problems that you're solving for are creating a gift-giving experience that is simple for the sender, the buyer, right? Being able to gift without hesitation. We see a lot of attrition at the point of what to buy because people get frustrated and move on. And depending on the nature of the relationship, some of that demand will actually just expire and never be acted on because they can't find what they want and they move on. And then 2 weeks later, you get an emoji, I owe you a beer, sorry, I didn't get you anything in time for your birthday. People are also wanting to be able to send a diverse set of gifts. And so while retailers and brands focus on their own, they should recognize that things like restaurants, experiences, these are becoming more and more important to the audience. And so if there's a way that you can bring that together, there's probably a win in that. People want to deliver gifts through familiar channels. And so we would seek to solve for how do you create that same emotional experience that you get when you unwrap that box and the excitement wrapped around it in order to deliver that through a digital experience. And flexibility is paramount on the recipient side, especially if you're looking to turn those recipients into people who will become customers of the brand in the future. And so this wouldn't be the first time that an industry has evolved and moved from kind of the old to the new. And there's going to be winners and losers in that, right? And Blockbuster is a great example of a loser. We used to ride bikes and now we're driving electric cars. Who knew? We used to analyze log files and now it's all done real time with pixel-based tracking. And CRM used to be Excel spreadsheets and note card holders, and now it's a robust multi-tenant SaaS platform that many of us probably use called Salesforce. And so this disruption, it creates evolution and it creates enhanced capabilities both for the users and the intended targets of those users. I would also say that it's important to consider that gifting is not a feature, it's actually a strategy. And it's not good enough to have a pick list of products on your site that some merchandisers rallied around and said these would make great gifts. It turns out that in the right conditions, everything is a great gift, even things that are incredibly hard to gift. And there's studies done that we've looked at with behavioral science professors to actually realize that the riskier the gift, which would mean and translate to humans that the more likely you send somebody something that they're not going to want, if they do want it, the more excited they actually get about it, right? And so gifting as a function is actually a strategy. It's not a feature. It's not a checkbox for I want gift wrap or I want a note. It's a top-down view on creating an environment where consumers can rely on you to deliver the right services wrapped around the consumer experience that is expected in that gifting paradigm. And so much like CRM is around customer relationship management now, we like to call it gift experience management, which is more of a functional take on how to manage that gifting experience across the enterprise, not just to allow peer-to-peer, but business to employee, business to consumer, and other use cases where gifting could potentially grow the business. Some of the reasons why that matters. There's many days throughout the calendar year that you're just simply not shoppable. All of the effort you're putting behind bringing those shoppers in and winning in those last minute moments, if you can't get it in the driveway, you just simply can't win. And so there's an opportunity around creating this digital experience to get into the middle and give your customers still a solution that delivers on the same promise that gifting otherwise should. It'll give you a chance, obviously, to win more consumers. When I ship a package to my house and then give it to my brother for his birthday, you have no idea who my brother is. And so when the brand can sit in between and in the middle, there's a massive opportunity to grow the customer file. You can eliminate returns, right? And the shipping costs associated with doing that, because you're putting the power of decision into the recipient's hands before the product ever leaves the warehouse. And then the revenue recognition side, most retailers will move towards a gift card type of a push in those last minute moments, because that's really what they have. But the reality is if you think about products in the same way you think about cash being digitized, if products could be digitized and delivered instantly and flexibly, then consumers can accept those and revenue recognition happens differently. Now there's plenty of other conversation we can have around that specifically as a cash flow management when it comes to gift cards and things, and maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. But in the end, there's a whole bucket of wins that can be achieved when gifting kind of moves away from this concept of I need a feature that I can serve a customer with in a last minute moment, and I'm going to care about that for 15 days a year because of holiday and other seasonal events that would require gifting. And when you start to zoom out and say it's actually a strategy, it's every day, it's hundreds of billions of dollars being spent, and so we need to actually pay attention to it the same way that we do to serve the mobile shopper, the same way we do for ADA support, the same way we do for really these use cases that are specific to a particular paradigm of shopping. So we're very, very close to putting an ebook out. We wanted to let you know that if you drop a quick email, we can get this in front of you. This is a great communication device to think about gifting, both for yourself and for your colleagues, gifting in the digital era and bringing this whole very sort of rich, emotional, traditional experience from the analog world into the digital world and allowing the brand to be at the center of that universe. So,
all right. Well,
that's all I got, Scott.
Thank you so much, John. We said we were going to do a deep dive into gifting, and appreciate all of your thinking and data that you brought to help us to get there. So thank you very much. So wanted to launch a couple of polls, see what folks who are listening in on the call are thinking about when it comes to gifting. And on one of the last slides that John mentioned, he talked about recognizing revenue sooner. So I want to start this poll, and this is asking if your business is looking at or using gift cards, especially during this time with the different challenges that we're all facing, as a way to increase cash flow and to generally increase revenue, if this is a strategy that you're all implementing. So I'll give you a few moments to answer this. Again, it's kind of asking about leveraging gift cards as a cash flow mechanism. All right, I'll just give it another couple seconds, and then we'll close this one. So it looks like around 45% are using this strategy. And there's also another 41% where it doesn't apply. So now you can go look at the closed polls to see the result in that one. The next one, the idea here is to think about your Mother's Day and the gifting that happened. And you might be seeing where, relative to past Mother's Days, there were more purchases that were for gifts or more purchases that were personal purchases. And so we're trying to get a sense of, were the gifting purchases higher than expected, or were the personal purchases higher than expected? Or did you see that both the personal and the gifting were higher than expected, or both the personal and the gifting were lower than expected? So it's a little bit of a mouthful, but hopefully that explanation was helpful in explaining what we're trying to get at with this. And it's just, trying to understand, are people more likely to be using gifting or during a holiday period buying more for themselves or others? So, all right, I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. I'm afraid I may have confused people a little bit with this, but given the lower number of responses, but let me close this poll. And what we're generally seeing is the winner seems to be both personal and gift purchases were higher than expected, which makes sense given the overall increase in e-commerce that we're seeing. So the last question, and this is a little bit of a teaser for our next webinar on Wednesday, June 24th, next week, about holiday 2020. And do you think that the online penetration rates, defined as online as a percent of total sales, how will that compare to the current COVID accelerated rates? Will it, where is it in that range of being higher or lower? So while we are getting the results of this, I'm going to ask our panelists to turn their cameras on. But let's see what we have here. So it looks like our audience feels like that they're expecting that the percent of total online as a percent of total sales is going to be higher. So almost 3/4 of you believe it's going to be higher. So that's interesting to think about going into the holiday season. All right, I'm going to turn my camera on as well. And while I'm doing that, so the first thing I want to do is ask our panelists to kind of introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their company, what makes it unique, and to describe, what they're seeing with gifting among their customers and how that's changed since COVID started. Are you seeing gifting volume up or down? Are you seeing unique products? Are you seeing new reasons for gifts? Is all of this gifting putting some strain on customer service? Any interesting demographics? So I'm going to start with Helena from Haus. If you could please introduce yourself Thank you for joining us and help us understand a little bit about the company and what's going on with your gifting.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And thanks for having all of us. I'm Helena Hambrecht. I'm a co-founder and co-CEO of Haus, which you can see right behind me on the shelf. We're an alcohol company that set out to disrupt traditional corporate alcohol. We're focused on better quality products, better ingredients, better packaging, better customer experience across the board. And we're one of the fastest growing independent liquor brands ever. So we're very grateful for what we've seen in our first year of business. And as far as gifting goes, we only have our own experience to share, but about 15% of our orders are gifts. And that number's actually gone down as a percentage during COVID because our company has grown so much over the last few months. So we've just had more new customer acquisition, and those tend to be personal purchases. But what we can speak to on this panel is very much how we anticipated gifting being a big part of our business and how we really created a customer experience that prioritized gifting and made sure that it was a fantastic experience for the customer.
Dana Springfield, Vice President of Marketing for Dover Saddlery. And Dover Saddlery serves the English equestrian world. We do that as an omni-channel retailer. We have 33 stores across the country. Customers generally prefer to buy in the stores, and so about 60% of our sales come from the store channel. And obviously, we were impacted pretty significantly in March, and that changed the dynamic of our sales and our strategy with marketing. And gifting played a pretty important role in that change. Very similar to what John shared in his slides. When we looked at the Mother's Day time period, that was sort of right in the period when we were starting to really ramp up our marketing efforts and try to drive the online channel. We saw, overall, our total business was down, in that sort of 8-day marketing window, about 30%. But we were seeing pretty significant channel shift, and the online business was up 10% during that 8-day window. But our total gifting online was up 74%, and it was a pretty big driver of our success during that period of time, and something that is certainly a part of what we're doing here. And as our stores are starting to come back, we're rolling that into our strategy going forward. But it's pretty important for us.
My name is Jing. I'm the founder of Fly by Jing, and we make all natural, small batch crafted Chinese food products that are available direct to consumer on our website. And we launched about a year ago after I saw a lot of false narratives that exist about Chinese food and really just a lack of high quality products in the market that were widely available and accessible. And I would say we have seen high giftability that was inherent in our products since the very beginning. We launched on Kickstarter. It was the highest funded craft food project ever on the platform. And because of the branding and the uniqueness of our products, because we were really the first line of Chinese sauces on the market without any artificial preservatives and additives, it was immediately shared very widely with friends and family. People would buy cases of them at a time and gift them. So that was a little bit more difficult to keep track of. But I think our customer demographic has been what we like to call the progressive millennial trendsetter. So their consumption choices have always been and are more and more aligned with their values. And they connect to our social mission of breaking down cultural barriers and for fighting for representation in the mainstream natural foods landscape. And since COVID, we have seen our sales increase 5x, driven partially because I think people were forced to cook at home for the first time. And our product is a relatively inexpensive way for you to instantly bring complex flavors to your home cooking. And we've received many emails from customers that it's brought them, enormous amounts of comfort and helped them get through difficult quarantine days. And we saw a lot of gifting there as well. I would say it's kind of hard to keep track of because our product, because it's we have a very small set of SKUs, and it's very clear what people come to our website for. Gift cards aren't really as popular on our website, even though we've tried to push that. So people generally prefer to send the products themselves to their friends. And oftentimes the only way we can really tell is when, just the address field and the recipient's name is different from the buyer. But yeah, so we did definitely see a huge increase during COVID. So partially because of, cooking at home, but also, I think people are becoming more socially conscious than previously. So we saw a lot of support with our social mission and also our involvement with the community, because we were donating up to 20% of our sales at one point to frontline healthcare workers. Yeah, so I'm happy to share more about that.
That's really fantastic. And I've seen actually both of your ads, both the Haus ads and the Fly by Jing ads, all over Facebook and Instagram. So it's kind of amazing to see the growth of the two brands. In terms of kind of jumping into some of these questions, first, before we actually jump in, I want to just remind the audience, you are welcome to ask the panelists questions. Just put them in the question box, upvote questions you're already seeing there. I think Scott is actually back, and he will be pulling from those questions when he jumps into the panel. So make sure you ask them there. Scott, do you want to take over?
Yeah, thank you so much for jumping in there, Veronica. Appreciate it. One of the questions we asked in the poll, which I thought was interesting and came up on the prep call, is about gift cards as a strategy for helping with cash flow and with raising revenue. And I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that. I don't know, we'll start with you, Dana. Can you share a little bit about your, if that's something that is an opportunity at Dover Saddlery?
Certainly. Well, I mean, I'm guessing most companies like us, and we don't recognize gift card revenue until the card is redeemed. So there's always a lag on financially when you can record that. However, the cash comes in, and you're very happy to get the cash. The financial component has always made us, under normal times, a little cautious with driving gift card volume, especially if you want to discount it, because ultimately, you lose a little bit of cash in the short term, but you don't recognize the revenue till down the road. But in this climate, again, as I mentioned earlier, with retail stores, we had an immediate evaporation of 60% of our cash flow, and so we needed to find ways to generate cash, even though financially we couldn't record it. But the digital gift cards in particular were very helpful with that, and so we've leveraged that strategy to help sort of balance our cash flow in difficult times.
And Helena or Jing, are you seeing anything different to that?
I can start. Similar to what Jing said earlier, we actually don't see a lot of gift card adoption on our site. We have both a physical gift card and a digital gift card. But similar to Jing's situation, we've noticed that when people want to gift our product, and perhaps this is a trend across a lot of e-commerce products, they end up just buying and sending the product itself as a gift. So I think it's a really interesting thing to keep an eye on for all e-commerce as to whether gift cards in that context may actually become obsolete the easier it is to just gift and send the product. It takes the same amount of clicks.
Yeah, I would say I have many friends who have gifted lots of Haus and also our product as well during this time. So I've seen it in action. Yeah, because I think gift cards, it is like, I don't know what to get for you, and I want to give you the option to choose. And because of the focus of a lot of these D2C brands, I think, it's already curated for you. So yeah, so we've definitely seen a a lot more gifting, and that's something that we're trying to at Fly by Jing get better at tracking and engaging with the end user. And we're, building that into a redesign of our website right now to enable, collecting of emails of the end user. But up until now, we haven't been able to take as much advantage of that. Yeah, and then the other thing I would say is that we had a kind of unique situation where we had a big feature in the New York Times. It was a glowing feature, and we ended up selling out of 3 months of inventory overnight. And we turned on pre-orders, and people have been extremely understanding, and pre-orders have not slowed down at all since then. We're still at levels of like about 3x before COVID sales levels. And in a sense that you can kind of view that as people's extension of like, let me support you, and I'm willing to wait for a few months for my product.
One of the things that I find interesting about the whole gifting category is that so much of the experience is focused on the person giving the gift. I mean, obviously they're the ones you're collecting their credit card information and so on. And from just being in the industry, talking to people in, the flower business, for example, where so much of the end product goes to the gift recipient, and it's always viewed as, a big area of interest and a strategy of, well, how do we take the person that's getting the gift, it's been introduced to my brand, and turn them into a customer of our own? And so I'm interested to hear, how you were all taking advantage of that. Maybe, John, I'll start with you, because you're seeing this, you're seeing across so many different categories and retailers and brands. Are you seeing an increased interest or increased priority in this, and anything that you see among some of the companies you're working with that's worked fairly well?
Yeah, so little known but interesting and almost embarrassing fact. Part of our system, whether you're sending a product from Kate Spade to your friend, or a gift card from Uniqlo, or part of our platform allows you to actually write a recipient response, right, and sort of close down on a loop. A thank you note is what we used to call that, right, back in the analog days, and it doesn't index as high as you would think. It's you would say 100% of the people should do it, and it turns out that not 100% of the people do it. Which means 20% or whatever the number is this week don't take the time to actually say thank you to people, and so I guess the general interaction, and as a company we focus a lot on the recipient, because in a lot of cases we find that the recipient is maybe new to the brand, and it's a new customer opportunity for the brand, and so and especially Helena and Jing, you probably experience this maybe more than Dana, where if you're buying, something for horse or equestrian type activity, it's pretty likely that person is into that already, where your brands are fairly new, and so it does give you the chance to capture that second customer, and then find ways to wow them and bring them into the file and make them the next gifter, actually, because that's when you made it, right? When somebody's willing to put their name behind it and give it to somebody else because they love it that much.
And Dana, Helena, or Jing, what are you seeing in terms of your own companies and how you're able to kind of onboard the gift recipients and convert them into customers? Dana, you want to start?
Certainly, but I think we have little to add on this. John kind of nailed it. Equestrian, the sport of English equestrian is very much generational, and it's a lifestyle. And much of our recipients are children getting gifts from grandparents and so forth. So a lot of our recipients are already on the house file. So it's a small opportunity for us. I'll say that.
Helena, how about from at Haus?
Yeah, it's a pretty big thing for us. We wanted to be in a primary organic growth company from the start. We actually didn't put any money into paid acquisition for the first 7 or 8 months of the company's life, and grew considerably without it. And I think there are many things that we did, but I think the most impactful one, and the one that's really relevant to gifting, is we include a editorial magazine with every order, and it's really sustainably made. It's not it's not a tough thing to make, and it's essentially a book that you receive with every box. It feels like a high quality editorial magazine, and in it we use the opportunity to tell the story of the product, why it exists, why we felt the need to do something better in the alcohol industry. It talks about the different products, including ones that they haven't necessarily bought yet, talks about the farm where we grow the ingredients. It goes into all of these details, which is not only helpful to the person who bought it for themselves, who doesn't necessarily know all these things about the product, but it's a really great opportunity to convert a gift recipient to come back. So that alone has helped us so much with organic acquisition. We see people actually gift the magazine without the booze because they like it so much and they want to share it with their friends. And we have such a high repeat rate, I think in a big part due to the education that comes with every package.
So kind of on a related note, and it seems that there's a House fan listening to the webinar. Danielle asked, House did amazing holiday packaging. Did you feel like you saw a lift from that? So maybe you could tell us what that packaging is, if it's in addition to the magazine you just described, and then talk about the impact of that.
Sure. Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, we did a special set of packaging for the holiday where we partnered with 3 different artists to make custom boxes. And the idea is that the box itself could be so beautiful that you don't have to wrap it, right? Which is, I think most millennials are always looking for opportunities to take their time back. So it ended up being a really good experience for the customer. The holidays was our best performing time for the company, but we're only a year old, so it's not a huge surprise there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the decisions we make are, they're difficult to predict how successful they'll be, but it's all comes down to what is the best experience for a customer and how can we make every touch point, including packaging, so great that they feel compelled to share it with everyone they know. And the amount of people who photographed those holiday packages and shared them, it was through the roof. And, that's organic acquisition. And so we've just found that having that mentality of like, how can we make every little piece of this experience exceptional has just caused people to share it.
There seems to be a correlation between, wanting organic acquisition and really focusing on customer experience, including the gifting experience. So I think that's an interesting kind of lesson for everyone to think about and take away from this. I guess wanted to just step back from COVID. We've been talking about what's been happening, during these unique times, but if you can, kind of put it aside for a moment, what are you all seeing with gifting overall? Just thinking about maybe the past 2 years and the different holidays, are, Americans or customers from other places, are they gifting more, less? Is it, unique? Are they more demanding? Dana, do you want to get started with on that, kind of like what you're seeing about gifting overall?
Certainly. I think John made some good points in his initial presentation. I think it's catching up. It's as a strategy, as it's integrated into your marketing. I think it has lagged behind the advances we've made in other areas of our company and products and general marketing, and so. But over the last 2 years, I would say it's covering lost ground, and particularly in the digital space. I'm amazed at how many retailers I speak to, traveling at various conferences who don't offer instant fulfillment of their virtual gift cards, and that was the case when I arrived at Dover Saddlery. And that is 100%. If there's one thing you can do today in your business, get yourself on a platform that offers digital instant fulfillment of digital gift cards. Because if you lose the days leading up to the holiday, and our campaigns go a day after the holiday, because there's always some stragglers, that is generally speaking going to be about half your revenue. And so, Dover was losing that, and so that's I think that there's still retailers out there that are still doing batch processing and 24-hour delayed on credit card processing and so forth. And so, what I'm seeing is the industry's catching up, and as they're getting caught up on processing and being able to do the instant fulfillment, then that opens up sort of taking advantage of those sort of 20 gifting opportunities that John talked about. 20 is a stretch for us, but if we can take advantage of 4, that's great, because it all starts with the reason, and then once you can start taking advantage of the reasons for gifting up until the last minute and the day afterwards, then you can start getting creative around the different options for digital gift cards and how the experience and the thank you and so forth. You can really start digging into that and making it an overwhelming positive experience for the donor and the recipient. And so I it's heading in the right direction, but it's been interesting to see that it was behind, and it needed to get caught up. But I would say characterize it as it's much like John presented it. It's been catching up and accelerating to get caught up with the 21st century.
And Jing, any thoughts? I mean, we'll maybe kind of wrap up after we hear you respond to this, but kind of what you're seeing with overall gift giving with Fly by Jing.
Yeah. So, as I said, I think with the rise of D2C and with, these brands that put so much thought into the branding of the product, the packaging, the entire experience, the products are often inherently giftable. And so I think this is definitely something in the last few years, the fact that, you can gift someone something and it will arrive at their door within a couple of days is really contributing to this. And then when we talked about kind of last minute gifting, it made me think of, there's more and more kind of 3PLs that are set up to deliver same day or within even 2 hours. And I personally, I had gifted some Haus to friends for their birthdays, and knowing it was going to arrive that day because it was something I forgot about. And I know you guys use Ojai for that. And so, yeah, I don't know if you want to speak to that as well, if you've seen that being used for gifting, but we've actually been super inspired by that, and we're integrating that into our 3PL plans.
Cool.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up with a rapid fire question. I'm going to put you all on the spot. And John, since you're in New Jersey, I'm going to start with you. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm in New Jersey too. But all right, I want everyone one prediction for gifting in holiday 2020. What's one unique thing we're going to see about gifting in holiday 2020?
I think we're going to see people spend a lot more money this year than they did last year, and they're going to buy gifts for people that they last year maybe didn't. Like, so the sphere of giftees is going to be bigger than it was last year, because I think people are feeling the need to connect with people more emotionally, and so I think that's going to impact gifting sales in 2020 holiday.
And Helena, how about you? One prediction.
I think gift cards will go down, considering e-commerce is the main way people are buying right now, and they'll simply ship physical items.
And Jing?
I agree with both of you guys. Nothing new to add.
Dana, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I'd like to take something from each one of those. Yeah, I think gifting it's going up in the right direction, and the mix of physical versus real products versus plastic cards versus digital, or it's really going to depend on your business model and what you're selling. But certainly, I would say that there's going to be a lot of digital ones last minute. That's a trend that I keep seeing going up every year.
All right. Well, great way to wrap it up. We're going to see more money spent on gifts. There's going to be fewer gift cards, more physical gifts, and we learned a lot from all of you during this past hour. So thank you all very much. Remember, we have a couple of things coming up in the next few weeks. One is our webinar next week that is going to be kind of continuing this theme about the holiday season on Wednesday. And then we have our virtual summit on July 28th and 29th. And all the information is in there in the handout. So thank you all again for spending some time sharing your insights with our community. And we look forward to seeing all of our listeners again next week for our 14th webinar.